Welcome back to the OCAD Youth Sports Report. My name is Avishai Sol. I am your host, and you may notice something's a little different today. What is a little different today, you might ask? In that case, you haven't noticed, and I'll tell you. It is the table. We're missing some of our favorite gear. You know, usually I like to lay out some sports gear, some basketball, soccer balls, tennis balls, shoes sometimes, whatever floats my boat, because it is a sports show. I was thinking, what is the only thing people like more than sports? The only thing people like more than sports is dragons. So today, here's a frickin' dragon, and I hope you enjoy it. We have a lot to talk about in the world of sports. Let's get into it. First off, we're going to start off in the world of boxing, where a couple weeks ago we had a superstar matchup in the super middleweight division between Saul Canelo Alvarez defending his belt against his longtime rival Triple G Gennady Golovkin. This match had more weight to it than even a normal title defense would because of the pre-existing relationship between these two fighters. Alvarez and Golovkin fought 3 times now, with the first time going to Alvarez in a close victory by decision. Usually Alvarez knocks his opponents out, but this time went to decisions. The second time was declared a controversial draw between Golovkin and Alvarez, but this third time was a much more resounding win in favor of Alvarez, maintaining his super middleweight belt as well as the undisputed championship of the world. And if you don't think that's cool, well, here's another dragon. Next, in some baseball news, we currently have one of the most impressive offensive seasons ever going on with New York Yankees slugger Aaron Judge, currently clocking in at 61 home runs on the season, just 9 off of Barry Bonds' all-time season record for homers. Of course, Barry Bonds was hopped up on steroids when he set that record. Judge is just a freak of nature, and as much as I hate to compliment anybody who plays for the Yankees, it's impossible to ignore Judge's production this year. And it's also just crazy to see him standing next to his teammates out there. When you talk about cut above the rest, Aaron Judge is just taller and more physically capable looking than the rest of the roster. He looks like another species. And if you don't think that's cool, here's another dragon. Now moving on to some basketball. I was mentioning the FIBA World Cup was going on, and we finally have a victor to the whole thing. Not just one of those little, they do a bunch of mini tournaments and I don't fully understand them, but what I do understand is win. This guy won, this team won, and it was Spain. They won. Behind the production of Bo Cruz, if you've seen the movie Hustle, or if you haven't, then Juancho Hernan-Gomez, who is a recent acquirer of the Raptors. Juancho signed for this season. We'll see if he can match his production overseas in the NBA, and if he can, then that'd be quite impressive for the Raptors. Next, keeping with the basketball, but moving from international play to America, but the WNBA. WNBA season is over with the Las Vegas Aces taking the World Championship against the Connecticut Sun. That was a little disappointing. I like to cheer for Connecticut. My grandparents are from Connecticut, but Las Vegas, incredible team, deserved the win. And more importantly, the numbers of the game. I think it's important to note that it was a packed house at this final. Once again, congratulations to Las Vegas for the championship. Now keeping on, but moving to the NBA, where we've had a few scandals in the NBA. It's been a little scandiferous. Starting off with Phoenix Suns owner Robert Sarver, who, after a year of allegations concerning his behavior in the workplace, whether it's racial discrimination or sexual discrimination, it's a whole laundry list of old white man faults. Sarver, after the league cracking down on him, the fans and players alike moving against him, have decided to sell the Suns. The sale is yet to go through, and we're waiting to see how much an NBA franchise is worth, but it's projected to be well over $4 billion. So that's his penalty, I guess. He gets $4 billion. But another scandal is Ime Udoka, Celtics head coach. Rookie coach last season, led the Celtics to the NBA Finals in just his first year, but he was suspended for a consensual affair he had with another member of the Boston Celtics staff. Not a lot of information has been disclosed at this time, but what we do know is Udoka not fired, but suspended for this upcoming season. It'll be interesting to see from a fan perspective, from a basketball perspective, how that will influence the team. Celtics made the finals, but now they're sort of trying to just stay afloat here. But they got the corpse of Blake Griffin, so hooray. Next in some NFL news, Florida is flooding, but we have a quote saying that they don't care because the Dolphins are 3-0. And if you don't think that's cool, here's another dragon. Here's another dragon. And now for our main segment tonight. We're moving away from reality. What does that mean? We're talking a lot about real life athletes, real life sports, because sports happens in real life and we don't need to make it up too much, but we do. We've made up plenty of fictional sports stories, fictional sports heroes and fictional athletes, and today we are going to go through the 15 greatest fictional athletes from movies and TV. I've categorized them too, and I'm going to start off with number 15, which may be a controversial pick. I'm going to start off with Jimmy Chitwood from Hoosiers. Hoosiers, one of the most impressive, one of the best critically acclaimed cult classic basketball movies of all time. You can make an argument that it's the greatest sports movie that was ever made. But we're not ranking these characters based on their box office success or their literary intricacy. We're ranking them on their athletic prowess alone. Based on a real person back who played in the 50s named Bobby Plump, Chitwood was a knockdown shooter who led his high school team to the state championship in Indiana in the mid-50s. Plump would then go on to play for Butler University, where we have 4 strong seasons, which we can project for Chitwood. So high school star, college athlete, never went pro. I think that warrants the 15th spot on this list. Coming in at number 14, we have Michael Orr from The Blind Side. The Blind Side is a interesting movie, but no one can deny the success of offensive lineman Michael Orr, who spends the second half of the movie kicking ass and taking names on the field, and then going on to commit to Division I football. We never get to see whether he goes pro, but he's just leveling people left and right, and he plays in Texas, so if he's kicking ass in Texas high school football, you can only imagine that he has a pretty strong case to succeed in college game and then maybe in the pros. And coming in at number 13, topping off the high school stars category, is Jesus Shuttlesworth from He Got Game. Another basketball movie. Jesus Shuttlesworth is played by Ray Allen. He Got Game is also a very interesting movie, but the reason why Shuttlesworth clocks up ahead of these other high school stars is not only is he the top-ranked high school player in the world in this movie, but he is also in talks to go right from high school to join the NBA, skip college altogether, which is something reserved for only the peak high school talent. Not every number 1 recruit at a high school would forego college and jump right to the pros. That's reserved for stars with the talent of Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Dwight Howard. So the fact that Shuttlesworth was able to threaten, in the movie he doesn't actually do it, he goes to college, but to threaten it, I think says enough about what kind of once-in-a-decade talent he is at the high school level. Next, we're going to move on to our second category, which is the semi-pros. Coming in at number 12 is Rigo Sanchez from Trouble with the Curve. Diamond in the rough pitcher Rigo Sanchez. We never actually see him play in the pros, although he does get signed to the MLB. We can just assume he succeeds because of the way the scouts and pro players react to him throwing the ball. I mean, we never see it, which is why he clocks in at number 12. But the bricks are laid for a successful professional career, but still can't get him any higher on the list. Now, number 11, the best ice stripper in semi-professional hockey, Ned Braden from Slapshot. Now, this is semi-pro hockey, this is the minors, but Braden is still a superstar for his team. He goes on to lead the team to success. He couldn't do it by himself. That's the thing. He couldn't lead the team to success by himself, but after implementing this new team philosophy, he gets there. And now this might be a controversial with the 11 and 10 here, but coming in at number 10 is Shoresy Shore from Letterkenny. Shore, also a minor league hockey player, playing today in modern hockey rather than in the 70s when Slapshot was made. I mean, you could argue 70s versus now, there's just a higher quality of play in the modern game, but what's more, Shoresy, despite his, let's say, flamboyant demeanor, he didn't need gimmicky punching people in the face to lead his team to success, because he was successful and punched people in the face. This was not a philosophy that was brought to his game in order to make him have success. He implemented this philosophy to his own team, gaining the captaincy and becoming a successful minor league hockey player. So despite the classic nature of the movie Slapshot, you got to give, in terms of just pure success, the edge to Shorzy in a head-to-head. Now category 3, the professionals. Coming in at number 9, Monica Wright from Love and Basketball was a star in high school. She was a star in college. But more than that, she spearheaded the first wave of WNBA talent playing for the Los Angeles Sparks. We see it at the end of the movie. We see her not only in the Sparks uniform alongside other WNBA pros, but her name is called out in the starting lineup, which means she is at the very least one of the 5 or 6 best players on her team. This is pro ball. The WNBA is the peak of women's basketball, and she is a starter on the Los Angeles team. We still don't know enough about her pro career to knock her any higher than this, but she deserves to be in this category. Now moving on to number 8, we have Bo Cruz from Hustle. I mentioned before Juancho Hernan-Gomez playing Bo Cruz, and this is the most recent movie on this list. But Hustle is a great film starring lots of NBA stars as well as Adam Sandler, and Bo Cruz, a foreign streetball star turned NBA recruit, goes on to play for the Boston Celtics. We see him at the end of the movie, and again, we don't see much of what he actually does in the NBA. We never see him play a minute of NBA basketball, but he plays up against NBA talent and succeeds. So we can assume that he is at the very least a productive player in the NBA, if not a star. Now moving on to number 7, where we get Paul Crewe from The Longest Yard. I'm talking about Paul Crewe from the Burt Reynolds movie and from the Adam Sandler movie. Superstar quarterback drinks too much and parties too much and falls off the deep end, goes to prison, starts a prison team. That's pretty much the plot of the movie. And while you have to knock Crewe's fault, you can't ignore for the fact that he was a superstar NFL quarterback for a couple of years there. He burned bright and burned out quickly, but his stardom demands the number 7 spot on this list. Now going on to number 6, where we have Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. This is controversial because Danny Rojas and Jamie Tart, 2 of the top goal scorers for Ted Lasso's team, are often at odds with one another. You could even argue that Tart holds the slight edge in terms of on-field production, but Rojas doesn't have the off-field antics that Tart does. Tart is selfish sometimes. He gets in his head. He tries to date teammates' girlfriends. He does this and does that. We don't need it. If I'm coaching a team, I'd rather have Rojas. Yeah, maybe he's a half step worse, but I'd rather not have to deal with all of the craziness Tart brings. Now moving on to the final category, the stars. And knocking in at number 5 may be a little surprising to some people, but it really shouldn't be. Forrest Gump from Forrest Gump. Not really a sports movie. It's not a sports movie, but Forrest Gump, over the course of his movie, stars in every athletic competition he takes part in. He's a star college football player, which is reason enough, but more than that, he goes on to play pro ping pong and wins an Olympic gold medal. So he's a gold medalist in ping pong as well. I think the versatility and success on the highest stage gets him into this stardom category. Now number 4, Rod Tidwell from Jerry Maguire. Rod Tidwell, not only was he a star receiver for his team, made the playoffs, but he was an NFL receiver, which means top-of-the-line athlete in his field, had a long career, earned multiple contracts. He's the only player thus far who we've really seen, or at least really have an understanding of what the skeleton of his career looked like. And the best might be yet to come after the events of Jerry Maguire. Coming in at number 3, Roy Hobbs from The Natural. Roy Hobbs, played by Robert Redford, comes into the MLB as an older player, but that doesn't stop him from going on one of the better seasons we've seen in professional baseball. This is similar to the Paul Crewe dilemma in that, do you take a star that has a brief period of success versus somebody who might have a longer career with less confirmed successes reached? In the case of Roy Hobbs, you gotta assume that if he's coming in at this extended age and already doing this, then how much further can he go? But I'm just saying Roy Hobbs, number 3. He was a star in the MLB, if just for a short time. Now at number 2, another basketball movie. I know there's a lot of basketball this week. It's a lot of basketball every week. I swear we're like one step away from this just being a basketball show. Like, I know it's sports, but it doesn't matter. The point is, number 2, Tracy Reynolds from Like Mike. An all-star on a losing team needs Michael Jordan's skills in the body of a 13-year-old Bow Wow to make the playoffs, but he does. And if you're an NBA player with a long career, score, it doesn't matter if you're selfish, because he learns to change, and he's an all-star. He's an NBA all-star. That's enough to get you number 2 on this list. But number 1 should come as no surprise to anybody. Rocky Balboa from Rocky. I know I mentioned there are a couple movies in there who you could argue for as the greatest sports movie of all time, but really I think the answer is this. Rocky set the precedent, and basically for the next 20 years they were recycling the Rocky plot line with different sports, just, underdog stories, stuff like that. Rocky, multiple-time heavyweight champion of the world. That's it. Best boxer on the planet for multiple years. That's all you need. Number 1. No argument. Now for our final segment of this week, this week's Athlete of the Week. This week's Athlete of the Week is this dragon. We're sitting here with all these dragons, right? I'm thinking we might take this show in a more dragonish direction. House of the Dragon. We got ourselves some dragons. Maybe we'll see some more dragons. Yeah, probably not. This has been the OCAD Youth Sports Report. My name is Avishai Sol, and I will see you all next week.